another attack on the hospital where victims were taken on Saturday. Details in the CNN report.
Is all that remains of the bus, packed with university students heading home when it was bombed. The fire that followed was so fierce it melted everything. Even 2 days after the attack, the sickening smell of burnt flesh still lingers in the air. Yasmin Baloch was on another bus right behind the one that was bombed. She was the first girl in her family to make it to university. I was sitting by the window when the bomb went off, she tells me. I had no idea what happened. Everything went dark. Then I realized I'd injured my legs. I cried for help, hoping someone would save me. Her leg is broken, she has burns all over her body. The shrapnel has cut her face, and she's worried about whether her hair will grow back. She goes on to tell me, the people who did this are very cruel. We're just students. What did we do to them to deserve this? In the intensive care unit of the hospital, Farzana Pervez worries about her critically injured 20-year-old daughter. Part of her daughter's skull is missing. We are really poor people, she says. My husband has worked hard to send our daughter to school and university, so she could have a better future than us. She was supposed to have an exam today. Investigators are now going through the wreckage piece by piece to identify the exact nature of the blast. 12 young women are now confirmed to have been killed in this deadly bombing, all of them students at the university. A senior intelligence official told CNN it was a female suicide bomber that targeted the young women students. But the bus bombing may have been a decoy for something even bigger. As ambulances rushed the injured to the government hospital, the hospital itself came under attack. Gunmen and 2 more suicide bombers. Among the 14 dead were 4 nurses and 4 paramilitary soldiers. Hundreds of people were held hostage, but today it remains sealed off and shut down, guarded by paramilitary forces. Pakistan is still struggling to absorb the horror of these attacks, aimed at young women merely trying to get an education. 3,000 young women come from across the country's largest province to study at this university. Yasmin wants to be a teacher, and she won't give up now. She says, we won't stop learning because of the people who attacked us. Education is everything. As soon as I get better, I'll go back to university with even more drive and hope. Simon Morsin, CNN.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has expressed concern about the level of force Turkish police have been using against peaceful protesters. After more than 2 weeks of often violent protests, Turkey appears to be a nation increasingly divided, and anti-government demonstrations are angering those loyal to Prime Minister Erdogan. CNN's Carl Penhall has details in this report.
Water cannons barreled toward anti-government protesters. A defiant few briefly resist. They're the stragglers at the end of a half-hearted strike by labour unions. Riot police prepared to chase them. Before they do, store owners and civilian bystanders loyal to Prime Minister Erdogan take matters into their own hands. They turn the protesters' own rocks against them. Then celebrate their victory, chanting the Prime Minister's name. This is Turkey, and we will not hand over this country to hired thugs. We're shopkeepers, and we've had enough, he says. Confrontations between rival civilian factions have so far been rare.
It's becoming more of a group, 2 groups in the same country.
Those clashes came after this demonstration. Leftist Labour leaders talk tough, calling for the Prime Minister to quit. Then they simply backed away. If they want to walk, then we can walk together, but we don't want any solitary heroes, he says. This is what's left now of the union protest. Most of the demonstrators have headed home, leaving this much smaller group behind. They seem to have lost momentum and run out of ideas about what to do next. The lack of leadership seemed to anger younger protesters who had hoped to march through police ranks into downtown Istanbul. This was a people's movement and ordinary people started it. The people will decide, not the union nor the parties, she says. But time for those decisions may be running short. Protesters seem to be losing steam, while many ordinary Turks seem to be losing patience. Carl Penhall, CNN, Istanbul.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has refused to sign a declaration demanding the resignation of the embattled Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. The development took place as leaders meeting in Northern Ireland for a two-day summit of G8 leaders. We have details of the story by DWTV.
Shoulder to shoulder for the traditional family photo. And while the two-day summit in Northern Ireland did expose differences between the leading industrial nations, there were broad areas of consensus. There was an agreement that the global economy is doing better than it was a year ago, but there's still work to do in implementing structural reforms and stimulating growth. There was also unity on clamping down on tax evasion. The G8 want tighter global controls and more transparency on the trillions hidden away in tax shelters. But there were sticking points. US President Barack Obama had to field tough questions on his government's secret surveillance program. And in discussions over the Syrian conflict, Russian President Vladimir Putin found himself increasingly isolated in his country's support for Bashar al-Assad.
We have differing opinions, but we all share the aim of stopping the violence in Syria, halting the mounting death toll, and solving the situation peacefully. That includes bringing the parties to the negotiating table in Geneva.
Russia refuses to sign a declaration demanding that Assad step down. A call for peace and more humanitarian aid for refugees will most likely remain the only points of agreement on Syria.
Time now to take a second break. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome to another week of the Fatu Show.
Welcome back, and time now to join the sports lady, Fatou Jassi, for a quick look at sports. Fatou?
Thank you, Esther. We know there are fierce competitors on the court, but some NBA superstars also rival when it comes to what they wear outside the game. Rachel Nichols has more on the fashion face of that grips the wall when these elite superstars hit the fashion spotlights.
They are the most elite basketball players in the world. But during these playoffs, NBA players have caught nearly as much attention for what they're wearing as how they're playing.
What we're seeing is essentially another form of competition between a lot of the big names in the NBA.
When you showcase like that, you want to step up a little bit. So now it's at the point where, guys are really getting out of the box a little bit.
Out of the box and beyond. Crazy patterns, candy colors, a wooden bow tie, and yes, even a monocle.
It's just another added feature that fans can talk about and actually fans can follow, because you know,